To graph a function rule, you need to be able to plug in values for x and solve to figure out what their relating values to y would be. So let's look at an example. Y equals negative 2x plus 1. So I'm going to build a table of xy values and of y values. So in this case, if I plug in, let's say, 0 for x, negative 2 times 0 is 0, plus 1 is 1. So when I plug in 0 for x, y is 1. If I plug in 1 for x, negative 2 times 1 is negative 2, plus 1 is negative 1. If I plug in 2 for x, 2 times negative 2 is negative 4, plus 1 is negative 3. And so on and so forth, and you can keep building a table. Usually about 5 points will be sufficient. So now I'm going to take this data that I found and I'm going to graph it on this coordinate plane. So my first point is 0 on the x-axis and 1 on the y-axis. That's right there. My next point is, our next point, 1, negative 1. We go to 1 on the x-axis and negative 1 on the y-axis. Right there. Our last point, 2 and negative 3 is right there. And then we can just draw a line going through our 3 points, hopefully straighter than that. And we have graphed this function rule. When it comes to graphing functions and problems, you want to be aware of 2 other scenarios, a continuous versus a discrete. Most of the time we're going to be dealing with continuous. That's this over here. That's when a line is produced, a straight line with no breaks in it. Discrete data looks like this, looks like individual points on the graph. The difference is depending on the scenario. A lot of scenarios are going to be continuous, but an example of a discrete scenario is if you're buying shirts and you want to graph the number of shirts over the total cost. Because you're not going to buy half shirts or a third of a shirt or 2 3/8 of a shirt, then the data is going to be discrete because you're going to buy 1 shirt and then it'll jump to 2 shirts with no data in between. And then it will jump to 3 shirts with no data in between because you're not buying parts of shirts. So that's an example where the information would really be discrete versus continuous, like a car's speed over its distance or something like that, or speed over time, where you can have those incremental movements where you can go 60 miles, then 60.1 miles, then 60.2 miles, and so on and so forth. So discrete are these individual data points. Continuous creates a line.